The Mormons have been to my house recently. Like, it, over my life, I mean, I've never turned missionaries away. I felt no need. It did not occur to me to say at any point the word golden. It escaped my mind. Mitt Romney didn't cross my mind through the whole encounter, let alone that he blocked me on Twitter. You cannot condemn the Mormons for polygamy while the international rape racket is denying people's parentage for money. I got that Book of Mormon in the same stack as my stack of Bibles. Don't make me regret it, Cousin Joe. Well, the churches would not tolerate, let alone do, the things that we are witnessing if they were it not for Islam. We would not abide this heresy, but we have for 1,500 years. Why? The Holocaust occurred in the chaos of a war zone. There was no rational authority able to confirm or address the situation in an effective time frame. How is that allowed to happen in Germany? Well, Germany was obviously, I mean, they were the focus of world attention. At that point, you're pretty much resigned to pursue the only way out is through. They say Hitler said all this stuff, and it's not that I don't believe it, it's just that it's not necessary right now. First, do no harm, or you're not a doctor, even, right? So if you're doing that sort of thing, we're going to go ahead and just figure the same sort of influence, the same sort of climate, the same environment. So they called it the Reich, even though it was a one-hit wonder. The First Reich lasted 500 years. The Second Reich lives on in the KKK. The Latin Empire lasted longer than Nazi Germany. How does it qualify as a Reich? Well, it was fascist and nationalist. Socialist, they were recovering money without due process. So how are they doing that? The Illuminati set up anarchy inside their country. So when I say these idiot doctors, what I mean is these idiot wizards. I have the highest esteem for the institution of actual doctor. I just happen to know one when I see one. Islam puts the humans in this impossible situation, and then it finances their return to, well, what they decide is normalcy. When you feed from the hand of the messenger of Allah, he is compelled to feed you. He must. But you're either a slave of the prophet or the infidel. Business is not concluded. So they used the FBI to sabotage Union Bank, branded Prescott Bush a Nazi, the Bavarian Illuminati, the gay mafia. When I was 3 years old, I stomped on the face of a 8-year-old bully in my preschool. Now, that's Dublin, London, Germany, Russia, Canada. But my ancestors built orphanages and cemeteries, not gay bars. Stonewall. Doctors have always had the stoic responsibility to carry out the stoic needs for the greater good. But you're not just going to operate on my society without satisfying the classical stipulations for their responsibility. This isn't a global smorgasbord for the Moloch. When you see an angel sitting under a tree and he anoints you, he invokes an authority over life and death on behalf of God. When a doctor carries out his duty to the community as opposed to his patient. He is invoking the authority of the angels. It's called divine retribution. Under the constitutional First Amendment, the Nigerians have made little secret that they are here to conduct holy war. And, you know, I don't think, maybe Idi Amin had been around, but by the time Trump started this public backed bankruptcy for profit racket, now we're conducting this collection against the people who have been sponsoring. They go bankrupt for a cut, and then we get deficit recovery advisors. The United Nations, with no religion, if the risen Messiah jumped out and bit their asses off all at once. And that's not far-fetched. I mean, most people hearing this, it doesn't ring a bell. But Islam doesn't know what a democracy is, and the United Nations protects it. So do we. We don't know how to reconcile it. Well, I do. I didn't know. Nobody asked. The most obvious argument is, well, obviously you can't invoke freedom of religion to persecute for your religion, right? Simple, and it should be. But the diplomatic immunity and everything being invoked has to be validated, but it's a baffle. I mean, the police didn't choose to have to compete on this level. I mean, some of them are into it, I get it. We've been forced to compete on an impossible scale, an impossible level. And it has not necessarily anything to do with the Vatican, but certain powerful influences would have witnessed the assassination of John F. Kennedy and our reaction, and then the atrocities committed in Vietnam, and they would have turned their backs. They were cut off over time, you know, and it's Islam. We were forced to compete. First, we were forced to come to the table with barbarians. And they don't look like barbarians. They look like nice people. But when the Taliban comes through, you better sing it their way, or they're going to cut your hand off. We're not compelled to do it that way. First off, we don't accept ass in lieu of payment. We're not just talking about lusty barbarians raping their way from temple to temple just because the priests are soft. They thought it made them a king. First, I shall do no harm. And then if it's gangrene, I have to cut it off. There's going to be some rape. What they are doing is not a real religion, because a real religion would have had to withstand the test of time. It is designed to be eternal. The only reason it has persisted for 1,500 years is because they enforce flat earth. And the reason that they get away with that is because the church has not been perfectly ecclesiastical since its inception. However, the authority by which they rule the church, which is separate from the state in a real religion, is that their assertion of authority is, in fact, rock solid ecclesiastic. In order to force us into this position, after bringing us to the table with flat earth, they had to attack the Olympics. Now there's just no choice. Now our providers are calling the shots, and they're misinformed, and you're not allowing me to make them aware. And that's going to make them angry, because in an Aryan system, we do have the Olympics, and it has been frowned upon in the past by the church, and obviously claiming to be Aryans while you commit genocide isn't the best public relations campaign. But we can't help it. We can't do anything about it. We would have to change our entire glyphology. A lot of alphabets would have to radically change, not to conform to what I'm talking about. I don't claim to know God's plan. I just know it was written in Greek. You're letting somebody manipulate our our broadcast mass media infrastructure has a radiometric profile that sets it apart from the rest of the planet exponentially. No landmass, no signal on the planet compares to the comprehensive strength with which we communicate here. I guess somebody figured out a way to tamper with it, to manipulate it. And I know about Mockingbird. I know enough about it. And I know about, this has had a couple names since I found out, because I didn't hack it, but when it's leaked, I'll repeat it. You don't like it, well, the Pentagon doesn't like what you're doing. I'll take my chances. Somebody lied to the Philippines, Washington. I don't mean they snitched. I mean somebody gave some fiction to the Philippines. What gives them the right to operate on Microsoft? Like I said, first I shall do no harm. And then if it's gangrene, I have to cut it off. I'm not going to eat it. But this having someone assert the authority of the angels to cut a gangrenous limb off before writing was common, that this was translated from, a lot of people, their word for that would have been rape. Well, these idiots codified it into a diplomatic assertion of authority, like, oh, so your authority comes from God, but then raping you makes me God. But the ferryman gets paid, like, I will pay you to cure me. You're not raping me because I paid you. And if you wanted to get really into detail about it, separating church from state, one might go so far as to say that the church is responsible for all charity operations. But you see, while it is not conducted for profit, it is part of the doctor's responsibility. You conduct triage, you take the worst one you can possibly save, and you move on to the next. Doesn't matter if he's a lord or a peasant. The lords have their own physicians for this very reason. The government takes their tax, they provide their service. It would probably, I mean, before the invasion of the Islam, the Saracens that brought about the First Reich, it would have been tribute, not taxes. The government takes their tribute and they conduct their affairs. They provide the services that we voted for. Anyway, the doctor takes his customary fee, which is a percentage. Well, the object is not to bankrupt the backbone of our economy over an injury in the line of serving our country. The doctor works for a judge of some sort. He's not going to embarrass his judge, make a barbarian out of his bard. This is why I don't even dignify communism with a response. It doesn't exist. Satanism? You mean heresy. If my Lord gets married and I have to build a road and your stupid village doesn't like it, I'm gonna build it right through your village. And then you superstitious peasants are gonna call me what? When I say the corporation will pivot, what I mean is the pendulum must swing back. You're not just gonna impose this flat earth quasi medical wizardry on us and keep it unreasonable and act like I am legally obligated to that. I call it the theory of lucrativity. You have to give our backers a plausible exit strategy. You're not just going to send communists around to take human shields from our women and pretend I am obligated to that. So the United Nations will want to diversify. I have some plausible designs for the, I don't know, adjustment for the trajectory of our foreign exchange, which I will submit to the Central Intelligence Agency. And as long as Washington fails to effectively implement my designs, Andrew Jackson will not be disparaged by virtue of relationship to me. You want to take down Jackson, you better fix the whole damn thing. I was decorated. I didn't get the good behavior award, little rainbow ribbon. I did get my combat lifesaver certification before I was robbed. We all were. But I come from a military family, and I have nothing but fond memories of the people, the men and women in the trenches. So I assure the Navy that cavalry, Marines, I would run through the fire for you. Okay. Air Force ought to already be in full revolt. So what we are going to do is make a demonstration of worthiness so that the backers we lost abiding this heresy have an excuse. We have to give them an out. It should have been September 11th, but we lost control of our media, and the media has freedom of the press. But you say our forefathers couldn't have imagined rapid fire weapons. The British were shooting them at us. Our forefathers would have lacked the frame of reference to imagine the Chinese owning our press corporation and our publishers making more off enemy investors via a platform for the Reich that they fled the German Enlightenment to settle here to begin with. There are so many things that we could work on. There are projects, human achievements that we've yet to accomplish. That there's no argument for saying, oh, well, that's not going to work. Because why? Because your gay mafia insurance lobbyist doesn't like it. So the Mormons, the faithful, are forgiven for now. Catholic churches can't be induced into attacking each other and marginalizing every other. It's not a contest for who gets to take over, to enslave the human race. That's called Islam. That's why they had to put the Olympics in check, so that it could be purely in heresy. I mean, what the doctors are doing is heresy, which makes them a wizard. Now we have no avenue but for the doctors to collect, and they have to compete for the spot with the guys who are, we pay them to take our toxic waste, they encapsulate it, subsidize. We're competing for our own failure, which is not the function of a doctor. A doctor has to collect, yeah, but It's all about the money, but somebody has to be keeping the money spendy. All food comes from the sun. All governments compete. In between, anything different must be temporary. Communism does not exist. God is a capitalist, but first, do no harm. A doctor is compelled to assist those gravely ill or injured, from each according to his means, to each according to his need. And that's called medicine, regardless of all your economic systems. Your rational authority of your democracy is based on a cornerstone medical ethics established 3,000 years ago. Before invoking the authority of the angels to enact divine retribution upon a member of my flock, including the idiot wizards, one must first ask themselves, is this something a God who loves me would want me to do? If you'd like to learn more about the practical application of ancient Greek philosophy to a modern holy war in the form of a war on crime, a war on drugs, and a war on terror, get your happy ass over to my blog at mfrodeo.blogspot.com. My first rodeo. Aren't you excited?